You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
Do I sound different? I'm not sure if I sound different or not, but there's a chance that maybe I do sound different. I don't think that West Coast, the Western Coast atmosphere changes the vocal quality of my voice. Welcome to Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. This is a third year bonus. I am set up in my, I'm mostly set up. I'm in a, my new workstation area at my home. So I'm very happy to be home. I can't tell you, how happy I am to be, finally dropping anchor again. It's, excuse me, I had a little bit of a burp there. I've been up since 8 a.m, which is, that's early for me. We got all kinds of action happening. I got my car in the shop. I just got this new car. Well, it's a used car, new to me car. Just a few hours outside Los Angeles, my check engine light comes on. It disables my cruise control, which I guess is something that happens on Subarus. And so fingers crossed. I dropped it off yesterday. I still haven't heard from them. It's like 4 o'clock. So I'm hoping I hear back from them. Like, what's going on with Goldie? What's going on with the car? I'm sure it's going to be fine. So positive vibes to you and yours for your travel, your car things. Everybody seems to be going through car things. Yeah. So, boy, it's been a whirlwind of a few days. I have been, I've got the whole situation almost set up to my liking here, and I'll probably rearrange a few more times. I still need to get some hanging lights. I like lights, I like colorful things. I've got the computer thing set up to be able to do voice command on lights, but I'm burying the lead here. Because if you're over on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Ryan Singer, you can be a free patron. You don't have to pay money to be a member of the Patreon. You just have to sign up for a Patreon account. And I am, at least once a month, I'm putting an ad-free episode out on Patreon because they're having us do like 5 mid-roll breaks on Spreaker now, which is, Spreaker hosts my podcast. So, shout out to Spreaker. But I don't love this new mid-roll program that they've got us on. So, $3 a month gets you every episode without ads. So, by the way, just a reminder, thank you to all the patrons over there. I think we might be at more patrons than we've had, well, at the very least in years over there. So I appreciate everybody who's been signing on. I got to tell you, now that I got a desk, I got this tiny little desk, I got this little, area set up. I'm going to be getting to work now. And by that, I mean, we've got Fitz done, with the exception of the music. We were filming more for Fitz Part 2 or whatever. Fitz do Part 2. Doa, is that a word? Anyway, we went out there to, I'm not giving anything away here. We went out with it. Greg he got a metal detector, and we started doing a very basic, just the very, very beginning of a search for Monica's remains over by the bridge. The bridge, which, by the way, was featured on Secrets of the Skinwalker Ranch, I think the last season or whatever it was. I don't know episode numbers. I don't have that. So I have seen it, but on a friend's account or something. I don't. Anyway, the point is I don't have Discovery or anything. But so I'm way behind on my Skinwalker viewings. Now, we went out there to do that. So to search for the spirit of a missing person, we believe, is who Mama Sue and Greg are in contact with out there at Mutilation Ranch. So, and we have been told, we've been told, multiple sources are saying that within 20 to 50 paces or something of the bridge, right? And there's a magnetic anomaly at the bridge that was measured. You can watch that on Skinwalker Ranch. But we already knew the bridge was weird because there had been 16 traffic accident-related deaths on that 1 mile stretch of highway that crosses through Tom Miller's property at Mutilation Ranch. And we believe that bridge is at the heart of it. So, anyway, no mistake. We camped out not very far from the bridge, I got to tell you. And there was at one point, it was really late or really early, depending on how you frame time. And we thought something crazy was happening at the bridge, but we were able to quickly debunk it. My buddy Agnes, who you might remember if you listened to last week's interview, was able to make the short trip or the long trip, or whatever. I don't know how they describe time themselves, but they are certified in archaeological survey and some other things. So they came down to help out. And unfortunately, it was just the three of us. I thought we were going to have more people out there, but, life gets in the way sometimes. So it was Greg, myself, and my buddy Agnes. And we set up camp. And the three of us are going to camp, and we stay there overnight. Now, we got a bonfire going just from gathered wood and all kinds of stuff. We got some snacks. Obviously, I got some peanut butter M&Ms because I'm a maniac. Now, we get there kind of late. And it starts raining right before we go. So we're kind of a little worried about the situation. And so we set up camp probably by 6:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Friday. And we lose sunlight, so we can't really go do the search for Monica. We'll do that the next day when we wake up. Well, we're kind of hanging out, setting up everything and just then relaxing. I'm cooking some veggie dogs on the bonfire. Not the greatest bonfire meal, not going to lie to you. Cut to about 10:15 p.m. And we decided we're going to do some sky watching. Never had done sky watching out there. I've only been out to the property twice previously, and that was on the same week-long trip. But Greg and Mama Sue had never specifically gone out there to do sky watching. So we set up camp not far from the gifting basket, where the gifting basket is for Oma, and we're kind of in between the gifting basket and the bridge. And the Purgatory River is right there. And it's a little bit cloudy, but it is beautiful out there because there's not a ton of light pollution because we're out in the middle of nowhere. Then what happens is it's about 10:15 p.m. and in the northwest sky, close to the horizon, a pretty good distance away, I see a strange light. And I get excited. Now, to be clear, we didn't do and had no plans of doing CE5 protocols to try to call in UFOs or orbs or lights or whatever. So I see this light and then I'm like, oh, you guys see that light? That's weird. It's in a weird spot because it's not like up in the sky where the stars are. And then boom, it's gone. I'm like, oh, that's weird, right? And nobody else saw it. And I just can't stop looking over there. And this was shortly after Greg and I had been talking, and we were talking about where maybe fits might show up or where UFOs might come from. And he pointed to almost that exact direction. He's like, I get the sense that's kind of over from this direction. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it over there. So I see the light, it disappears. It's strange to me, and it's strange that it just kind of blinks out. I'm like, maybe it was an airplane. I don't know, right? And then, pretty quickly after that, another light shows up and starts moving slowly from my left to right. So from west to north. Very low to the horizon, but seemingly a pretty good distance away. And then I'm like, oh, there it is. It's moving. And you know how it is. It's hard to get someone to see a pinpoint of light in the sky when you just go, oh, over there. And people are like, what, where? And so then it moves from left to right. And, I would say maybe, 4 or 5 inches in my view down the horizon, right? From left to right. And then it just fades out. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I think I said something along the lines of, we've got something going on here. I sensed it, right? I was like, we got something going on here. My paranormal barometer went off. And then Greg says, should I go Should I go meditate? Do you think that would help? And I go, it would not hurt. And so Greg goes into the tent, starts meditating. And at that same time, Agnes does a meditation. And then after, I don't know, not even 5-10 minutes at the most, I start seeing these lights again. And I keep hollering at Greg. I don't know how deep he was in meditation, but it was like he didn't hear me, right? And he's 10 feet away from me inside a tent. And so I'm like, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. We got something going on. We got something going on. We got action. And so then he gets out there. Agnes gets over there. And the three of us watch in that same spot area where I saw the initial lights. For about 20 minutes, we get a light show. We get multiple UFOs, unidentified balls of light, UBLs. Should we just start calling them UBLs? So we get a bunch of UBLs, right? And they, sometimes it's one appearing, moving in a weird direction, and then disappearing. Other times it's multiple UBLs showing up and appearing and kind of interacting with one another. I think we were describing as almost as if they were dancing together, these UBLs, these unidentified balls of light. And if this keeps happening for about 20 minutes, I would argue probably about 20 minutes. I'm trying to and then halfway through I decide I need my notebook. I need to, start doing hashtags for each one I see so we can try to keep track of how many we see. And I was making a hashtag like every, 20 seconds or something, right? Every 30 seconds, a new set, one would disappear and a new set would appear or a new one would appear. And they're moving in weird, they're zigzaggy, they're curvatured lines. They're not moving straight. They're not, and trust me, we were close to seemingly, if I had to guess, 2 major flight paths. And, these did not have the blinking lights. These did not blink. This didn't have the red, the white, and the green like airplanes will do on the left and the right and the center or whatever. These weren't satellites. We had satellite tracker. I have flight tracker on my phone. I have satellite tracker on my phone. I have the ISS tracker. These are appearing, blinking into existence, making some weird moves, and then they're gone. That's it. This goes on for 20 minutes. And so let's just say on a conservative side, there was only one light per 20 seconds. That's 3 a minute. And for 20 minutes, that's 60. Now, whether it was the same UFO, UBOL, or whatever, UBL, maybe we should just call it UBLs, unidentified balls of light. So if it's, were they the same UBLs? I don't know. But we're counting them individually per occurrence. That's 60, right? 60 UFOs in one night. Now, I have seen with a group that included friends of the show, Jim Perry and Daniel Noah, at a park in Los Angeles County one night. We did see a couple light anomalies, UBLs, moving in strange ways that were not, airplanes or satellites, because they were moving just dramatically in different directions and just stopping and then moving a different way, right? That's what these were doing. Every single one of them was doing some kind of strange movement. That's 60 UFOs. I have been thirsty for orbs and thirsty for lights in the sky. You know that because you know me if you listen to this program. I've been thirsty for it. And wow, I was absolutely floored. I mean, I'm getting emotional recalling it here in the moment. And it looks like a commercial is coming up because, Saved by the Bell on that one. I'm going to be able to regather myself and recompose myself. Just a reminder that you don't have to listen to these commercials. You can hit the fast forward button, but I know we don't like to hit the fast forward button all the time. So you can just kind of go to patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month. You'll never listen to a commercial again on this program. And we're going to be right back. Okay, now we're back. So I'm talking about this is a conservative, and I need to be clear, this is a conservative estimate. 60 UBLs, UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. Just tantalizing us. Blowing our minds, melting our faces. When it first started happening, I was like hollering, like, look at this, like, get out of here and look at this. When Greg was in the tent meditating, and I wasn't recording at that time, but you could hear the emotion in my voice. It was hard for me, like when you're emotional and you might cry, and it's like hard to like talk and like especially yell or get someone's attention. You probably heard that. I'm right by the street here. This is the apartment that had the Tesla run into it, but we're all fixed up now. So my voice is like cracking as I'm like yelling, because I'm on the verge of tears, because what you're able to witness, what we were able to witness that night, and many of you listening to this have experienced this, I'm sure. It's emotional. It's so beautiful and awe-inspiring, unexplainable. Yet I was filled with such a deep emotion of gratitude and love. And, some people have been asking, some friends of mine, were chatting about it. Obviously, I'm I'm not keeping my mouth shut about this, right? After it happens. And it is, people ask, was it scary? And, I never know how I'm going to react to something. And quite frankly, having such a large UFO experience, I thought that it might have, there might have been a tinge of fear, because I'm also out in the middle. I'm on Mutilation Ranch while this is happening, and it's pitch black out there. I mean, well, it's not pitch black because the moon was waxing. It was a waxing gibbous. It was the day after the last day of the full moon, and so that was illuminating the sky to a decent amount. But at the time, it was still low in the horizon on its rise, and behind some clouds. So, but even when it was high in the sky, it's still pretty dark out there. Right in the middle of 1,400 acre ranch, where there's cattle mutilations, missing, there's spirits, there's UFOs, there's all kinds of stuff going on out there, right? So the stage is set for some creepy feelings. And when the lights started dancing and happening and continued for 20 minutes, I got to tell you, I was so exhilarated, and I was enthralled. It had encapsulated my entirety. I don't know how, I guess that's one way to say it. I'm not even sure what that means, but it was all consuming. And I in that moment, I felt no fear. I felt no apprehension. I felt nothing but gratitude and love. And quite honestly, those feelings also stemmed from how lucky I felt in that moment. And I've done CE5. I've done CE5. I've done CE5 a bunch of times. And, looking for this kind of experience. And I haven't gotten that kind of experience from CE5. There's been other, strange, interesting things that have happened. But this experience was beyond my scope of understanding, and quite frankly, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared for it. That doesn't mean that I was scared or anything like that. What it means is, I wasn't prepared to have such a profound experience of that specific nature. I thought we might see a couple things, right? Because we're at Mutilation Ranch. I'm expecting that we'll probably get lucky and see maybe a couple UFOs or something, right? A couple lights fly by and do something weird. I didn't expect a 20-minute prolonged light show. It was baffling. I couldn't believe it. Like, it's this thing too where you lose your words, and And, I kept asking for permission to film. And, I try to get my camera out. And, cell phones aren't great with darkness, especially from so far away. So it's very difficult to get any great footage of this. I will never go out to that property again at night without one of these nice, Sony A7s or whatever they are, cameras that my buddy Eric has. And that we used in Mount Shasta as well, that I borrowed from my buddy Alex. But he's got that same camera because, the light aperture, you can open it up so much that, it could be 2 a.m, pitch black out there, and you open that lens up and it looks like it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how wonderful, that's how advanced this technology has gotten now as far as cameras and lenses. Now, I'll never go, if I would have had that camera, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? It's the paranormal life is filled with regrets. And, we could drive ourselves mad with shoulda, coulda, woulda when the world of the paranormal, especially in investigations, when great evidence is unfolding in front of us. Now, there is video of this happening. We did capture some of it, of course. Is it, what we'd want to change everyone's mind in the world? Here's a 20-minute light show. Explain this, right? These aren't drones. These aren't satellites. These aren't airplanes. It's not a meteor shower. It's none of that. Because, also I saw probably, 4 or 5 shooting stars over the course of the entire night. Didn't go to bed till the sun was coming up, by the way. It was probably 6:30 in the morning. And then slept for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours before Tom Miller came over and visited and hung out with it. He has leased his land and sold his cows. So he's not technically the owner. He's definitely not the owner of the cows, and he's leasing the land now. So because he's retired, he's in his 80s. But he came over. It was really a great treat to see Tom and talk with him a little bit and, inform him about, the night's events or the morning's events that had happened, mere hours earlier. And he obviously was not surprised or shocked by what we were telling him. I can tell you, without hesitation that, and I'll speak for myself, Agnes and Greg, we were blown away. I don't think I'm the same person I was when I showed up there Friday afternoon. Or actually Thursday. We got to Trinidad Thursday. And then all of us stayed at Greg's. And then Friday, we weren't able to get out onto the ranch Thursday. But we were able to get out there Friday and stay over Friday night. And then ended up leaving Saturday after doing the search, or the preliminary, a very, rough search. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dan Lindholm was en route right now as we speak to go back to the property and continue the search. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to get confirmation about that, but I'm not going to try to get that right now while I'm recording, but I don't think I'm the same person that I was. That's the point. It was such a miraculous event. And I kind of lose my breath thinking about it and talking about it. And, I have different friends who are into this. I have friends who aren't into this kind of thing. Like the guys I live with, they're not into this. My buddies. They're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. You saw some lights. Great. They don't get it. They don't understand that. This part of, the curious adventurer that is the paranormal researcher and investigator. That's not their bag, and that's fine. But I'll tell you, those who get it, get it. But I really wish everyone could have this experience. Because it is transformative. I don't exactly understand in what way it transforms me. It's still too fresh. It hasn't even been a week. So, I'm still getting tingly and goosey. I'm getting all goosed up thinking about it, right? It's just like you want to just sit there. You want to fall down almost and just cry and say thank you and yes. God, we're so much bigger. We're so much bigger than we think we are. We are part of something. We are intrinsically a part of something so much bigger than our individual selves. And it's hard to explain while seeing some dancing lights in the sky that you can't explain why that delivers such a profound message, but it does. It shows us that there is so much more going on. There is so much more to who we are and what we're capable of doing than where we currently stand. Now, whether you're standing, whether that standing place is Mutilation Ranch, or it's, my hometown of Dayton, Ohio, being on the back deck of my dad's house trying to look for lights in the sky, or beautiful Los Angeles, California, where I am now, waiting to hear about Goldie, my car. It doesn't matter where we stand. It doesn't matter where we're located. We're all part of the same spot, the same thing. And there's something so much bigger happening, and not in a conspiratorial way. The unfolding, the experience of life and consciousness. And maybe I'll have some great deep insight and awakening and unfolding of myself as well. And what we see in the world is a reflection of what is inside of ourselves already. I mean, that's part of the connective tissue of this whole thing. But how do we maintain this whimsical view of the world in a day-to-day life when we can get so bogged down by other things, when there's dancing lights in the sky that have intelligence, that have emotion, that have consciousness? You can tell because they would respond to requests from time to time. I can get more into that here momentarily, but because I'm not even finished telling you really about what happened, let alone trying to do the recap and put all the pieces together about what it means. How about I finish telling you about the experiences that unfolded while we were there, because this is going to sound wild, maybe not, but that 20-minute light session was at 10:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time was merely just the beginning of the wildness that was to ensue at Mutilation Ranch. So patreon.com/Ryan Singer, you can get other stuff. You can get bonus content. You get access to things. We're going to do another live stream now that I'm back home at some point soon. We're going to do, there's other things as well. So, so patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month gets you no commercials. Wouldn't that be grand? Thank you so much to all the patrons. God, I love you guys. I love everybody. You don't have to be a patron for me to love you, but, I do appreciate you. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. We're talking about a 20-minute session of just constant, nonstop UFO, UBL activity, unidentified blinking lights is what I'm calling UBLs. So that's I don't know if that's a thing already, but it just came to my mind, so we're saying it. Now, I will say this. That was more than I ever could have asked for. Okay? I want to preface this next part by saying that was more than I ever could have asked for. It was mind-blowing. And as paranormal researchers and investigators out in the world know, that we're lucky to get a few seconds of really deep connection with something that's unexplainable or from the other side or something other or interdimensional, etc., let alone a 20-minute thing where it's just Bonk City, USA, population us. Now, then later on, a little bit later, after the light section, it was emotionally exhaustive. Greg says, I need to lie down for a little bit. And so Greg goes back into the tent and he lies down. He goes Zonk City, right? We're in Bonk City. Bonk City oftentimes leads to Zonk City, right? So Greg's in Zonk City. Agnes and I are still hanging out. And all of a sudden, we decided to do another meditation, a short little meditation. And I kind of do this thing that's, derivative of CE5, just internally to myself. I'm sending out a beacon of my location in the universe, letting them know where they can find us. If they want to come visit us again, we're not trying to be greedy. But if you want to come hang out again, that would be great. But gosh, you already gave us everything we could ask for. You already gave us 1,000,000 Christmases. You don't need to do it. But if you want to, we're here for it. She did something else where I think she went internal. I'm not exactly sure. We'd have to get the details from her about it. But, I'm trying to remember. It's a little hazy for me. But, and then we open our eyes and then we see blinking lights coming from the bridge. We see these blinking lights coming from the bridge. And I didn't see them at first because I wasn't looking there. But all of a sudden she just goes, "What is that over there?" And then I'm just like, what? And then we see these blinking lights from the bridge. And the feeling that I had, and just from speaking with her about this afterward, is I know that it was somewhat similar. This one was a totally different nature, and it had a totally different vibe than the UBLs, the lights in the sky that we saw. Fitz, whom we can only assume was Fitz, dancing around for us earlier in the night. And this is probably 12:30, 1 in the morning, by the way, and Greg's still asleep. And it had an ominous vibe, and I'm like, it had this, I think, where I said something along the lines of, because some of the lights were blinking red, and I go, we're not going to go over there and check this out, because, I'm not a sucker. I'm no sucker over here, right? Where I'm not getting lured in to something over there. And so we didn't, and then eventually, it just doesn't stop happening. And it looks like it's in different locations. And it's fascinating. It's like something is watching us. Something has come down and is now approaching us or getting closer to us, at least from where it was previously with the lights in the sky, which seemed to be, a pretty good distance away from us down the horizon. This one seemed to be like ominous, pretty kind of close, and mechanical. Cold, emotionless. Didn't seem to be any emotion or consciousness or sentience attached to this thing, at least in the moment. It just seemed cold. And even though it was much closer, it felt more distant, if that makes sense. Then I grabbed what I call the light cannon, one of those handheld, trigger light flashlights that kind of look like a bullhorn or whatever, but it's it's got the finger trigger that you use as you're holding it. You know what I'm talking about. I call them light cannons. And we take a light cannon, we get over there just a little bit closer because it turns out I am a sucker to a certain degree. We're not going to go all the way over to the bridge though, and it's pretty creepy now. All of a sudden, the energy has changed. It's become quite creepy. And then I'm blasting the light cannon, and I realize, and then I hit a reflector. And we've got binoculars. We're checking it out. I hit a reflector, and I'm like, I think it's the reflector now all of a sudden. But I have no idea where this light source is coming from. What light source was, and the only light source I can think of is that the moon. The moon had maybe finally reached into a position higher in the sky to where its reflection of the sun was now reflecting off the reflector on the bridge in these different locations. And maybe it was slightly windy. It was pretty windy out there, so as it always is. So maybe they were being blown around a little bit, causing them to vibrate, and then finally hitting that sweet spot to where they're reflecting that light. And they were different colors because it seemed to be green, white, and red at different times. We took the light cannon over, and then eventually, after a bunch of different tests, we didn't go all the way over the bridge, but we were able to pretty confidently debunk that as reflected light from probably the moon. And then we talked about it, and we both had the word mechanical in our mind. So I think that's why there was no sensation of there being emotion or consciousness attached to the phenomena that we are witnessing, because it wasn't. And it was mechanical. It was physical and practical, and man-made, with the exception of the moonlight, right, which is not man-made, obviously. But so I'm hell-bent at this point on not sleeping, staying up until the sun goes down because I just want to see what happens, right? See if we see anything. And so we're doing our best. You know what I mean? I'm drinking water. I'm drinking a little bit of Diet Coke, but not really. I had like a 2 liter earlier in the day that I'd brought out or something. But anyway, you don't need a ton of caffeine when you have a 20-minute light show that gets you jacked up. I mean, you either go to Bonk City or you go to New Jack City, right? And I was in New Jack City. So I was jacked and juiced and cracked and sluiced. You know what I mean? And so then we kind of rotate. We keep the fire going. We're just kind of chatting. We're just kind of watching. It's kind of just sky watching, right? Just very peaceful, very relaxing, very meditative. Just kind of, you know, not having like a lot of like long, drawn out conversations or, things like that. Just kind of just watching the sky, being in awe of the moment, understanding how lucky we are to be at Mutilation Ranch overnight and how damn beautiful it is, and just trying to drink it in with your eyes, trying to just remember it and be there for it, right? And Greg's still asleep, and it's about 3 in the morning, 3:15 in the morning. Greg's still snoozing. And in a different part of the sky, I see a blink of a light close to the horizon. And I'm like, oh, what? And then it's gone. And then I'm like, I tell Agnes, I go, I think we might be invited back to the party here. And sure enough, a few seconds later, another light shows up, moves around a little bit, blinks out. And then that's when we know it's party time. So what you have then is what I can only describe as an hour and 15 minutes at least of just unbelievable, dazzling, dancing, just mind-blowing activity. Much like the first session of 20 minutes where they were popping in every 10, 15 seconds. Sometimes there's as many as 4, seemingly 5 lights now dancing. And this time they're not staying very close to the horizon. They are expanding their range from just above the horizon and up and high into the sky, where there's this one cloud that was kind of hanging around all night. Just never moved away, really. Changed forms and changed shapes a little bit. I believe Agnes figured out what kind of cloud it was. It's a cirrostratus undulatus cloudlet, if I'm even saying that properly. And is what it was. A cirrostratus undulatus cloudlet. A cirrostratus undulatus cloudlet. And so now we've got an hour, close to an hour and a half of lights dancing, going straight across, then diving down, going at weird angles, and then curling, and then kind of going in circle moments or movements. We have airplanes from these 2 major flight paths. Now, granted, not as busy as it was earlier in the night because it's now, 3, 4 in the morning. But you still have flights coming in somewhat regularly and these 2 different paths, right? Some of these lights seem to go right directly toward the airplanes. It was crazy. If you were on the radio, I would not have been surprised at all to hear the pilots calling this in, being like, there's a light coming for us. It just flew right over us. Like, I would not be surprised at all. These UBLs were everywhere, and they were going bonkers. They were doing left to right. They were doing right to left, up to down, down to up, angles. And a lot of them were going towards a very bright floodlight attached to Tom Miller's house. It almost seemed like a lot of them were funneling toward his house. It's wild to think about. Now, he's had experiences with orbs, and he saw red balls of light outside his window years ago, and then his bed started vibrating, and then he felt this weird sensation, almost as if kind of like moving from one side of his body to the other and then out. And the next day he couldn't walk, and he had to go to the doctor. And he starts telling the doctor the story, and the doctor starts giving him the face like, oh, here we go. And so he gave him like a steroid shot or something, and then by the next day he was able to walk again. But these lights were headed directly towards him and his wife's home. Not all of them, but a good amount of them. It seemed like it was pretty crazy. I wasn't sure that it was his house at the time. He confirmed the next morning when he stopped by that it was. So we're talking about an hour and a half of, let's just say on the conservative side, 1 every 20 seconds. So that's 3 a minute times 90 minutes. It's 270. So now you're looking at 330 UFOs in one night. 330 UBLs in one damn evening. More about this when we get back from another commercial break. Patreon.com/RyanSinger. No commercials, baby. God, I hope you're doing well out there. We're going to be right back. Okay, so we're back, and I got to tell you, the idea here is that one of the craziest nights of my life, for sure. There's no real way for me to put into words. I'm doing the best I can, trying to explain it. Quite honestly, I'm still trying to process this. And, once I figure out how I can truly process it, I'll be integrating it moving forward. But I do feel like you could go out to Mutilation Ranch any night, any day, and you'll get the exact same thing. I just feel that in my bones, that if you just go out there, you're going to see that. And you just have to make sure you stay up all night, but you're going to get it. And, in the first 20-minute show that we got, there was a lot of me asking for permission to try to film it. And every time I'd get my camera ready and I'd finally get it out and I'd hit the record button, they'd blink out. Because some of them, I didn't discuss this yet, there's a variance in the brightness and the size of these lights, these dancing objects. Some of them were extremely bright, and others were much more dim. So there was a great variety of the size and intensity and brightness of these lights. Now, all of them were of the whitish color. There wasn't blue and red and green or anything like that. From the best I could tell, they were all white. Now, we'll have to get Agnes on the program, and Greg and I spoke last night on the phone a little bit, and he wants to come back on the show, and we're going to talk about this. I'm going to interview him, and we're going to discuss this and how it ties into and relates to, the investigation at Mutilation Ranch and Friends in the Sky. But I got to tell you this: I hope for everyone to be able to experience this at some point in their life if they haven't already. And I don't know if I'll ever get another light in the sky for the rest of my life. I mean, I got 330. That's a conservative estimate, right? I think it was actually quite higher than that. But I'm giving a very conservative estimate here. It was to the point where just over and over and over again, for the totality of, close to 2 hours or longer, I just kept saying, wow, oh my God, wow, oh wait, another one, oh wow, oh my God, it's still happening. Is that it? Oh my God, there they are. Oh, wow, oh my God, oh thank you, I can't believe this, thank you so much. Just overflowing with gratitude. It's very humbling. It was a very humbling experience as well. And it's just, you feel this connection to them from a great distance away, but they feel very, very close. They feel right next to you. And to me, that is, and granted, I'm an idealist kind of guy, and I love idealism. So I'm always looking to wedge my experiences through the lens of idealism. But I feel like the consciousness aspect that connects us and the UBLs, the UFOs, the UAPs, whatever you want to call them, the dancing lights, I feel that it allows for us to have proximity when, in fact, physical distance could be great. Now, I don't know the science behind that necessarily, or not even necessarily. Assuredly, I don't know the science behind that, and I'm not sure anyone does. It's this, power of thought, and proximity of thought is profound, and you feel connected. You feel as if you are communicating with something while it's happening. At least I believe all three of us did. And if my car wasn't in the shop, who knows? Maybe I'd just be driving right back, just trying to get back on the property. I mean, it's one of these things where you see it and do you get hooked, or what happens? Like, do you become a fiend for it? Now, I'm not trying to be. I was already pretty damn thirsty for orbs and lights in the sky, and I got to tell you, I feel like I got my cup overfloweth, and I'm not trying to be a greedy guy over here. Okay, so like I said, who knows? Maybe I'll never get another light in the sky for the rest of my life. I highly doubt that will be the case, because I will be constantly looking at the sky and the stars. But another thing I learned is, what the interesting thing is, it's more about the horizon. Looking on the horizon line more than like directly, like leaning your head all the way back or trying to lay down on the ground and just look at the stars. They all started on the horizon, and I'll have to talk to some people. I'll have to do a little more research and go back over some previous things I've read. But and we kept the degrees. We marked down the degrees on the compass where they were appearing and where they were starting, so we could have some kind of indication of a star map at that time as well, because we do have the time stamps for the most part, almost probably exactly, and we have the degrees down to the exact degree where they were showing and where they were appearing. So I haven't had the time yet to go through star maps and look through there yet. But I will say this: something else very interesting happened, and it relates to a couple buddies of mine, Matthew Jackson and Eric Connor. Greg was using the Portal app, which is an ITC device that you can download on your phone. And we were trying to contact Monica. And Monica did light up the EMF reader at one point, the K2 meter, for us a couple times. Now, we had gifted apples as well. We woke up on Saturday, they were still there. None of us were shocked or surprised by that. We were sleeping, maybe 150 yards away from the gifting basket. So anyway, we weren't too far away from the bridge and the highway road either, which, quite on, and every once in a while, not very often, cars would drive down, but throughout the night, but not a lot. And I got to tell you, that didn't bother me. This was the first time I had camped out since my experience in Florida in 2019. This was the first time I attempted sleep in a tent at an outdoor location that is especially known for, high levels of paranormal activity, let alone a state park or national park or anything like that, or a campground. Now, I've slept in a cabin at a campground, or, LSD cabin where, Eric and I barely slept those 2 nights. So that doesn't really count. We're talking about a thin veneer separating you from everything else that is out in the night and then in the dark. This was the first time I'd done that. So I didn't mind being somewhat close to a road where every once in a while a car would drive down, right? I was like, okay, that's I can, in fact, it kind of soothes me a little bit, right? But I mean, we're talking maybe, especially after midnight, we're talking maybe 1 car, 2 cars an hour would come down that road. So, and we were right by the river, pretty close. We were kind of tucked almost into the tree line, right by the river, and heard some weird noises. I think they were coyotes whistling and things like that. So, anyway, but yeah, so we're listening to the Portal, and something keeps coming through the portal over and over and over and over. And almost like every sentence stops with, "We are the seven. We are the seven." Different voices saying it, seemingly male voices. Now, this is a device that plays audio backwards. We are the seven. We are the seven. We are the seven. We are the seven. Things like that, right? And I'm like, can't remember specifically the details, but I know that Eric and Matt both have had, experiences with an entity or something called the seven or seven. Matt was asleep. I'm texting him. Eric, of course, was awake. And so he starts responding to me. And he's giving me information about how some people, we are the seven. Sometimes then, it's very similar to we are legion. And I'm like, we don't need to be talking to this. Something dark and nefarious is trying to come through here. This is not what we're here for, right? And this is not how we're going to kick off this night, right? Because I think this was before the sightings in the sky. So this is probably 9:00 at night or something. And I'm like, this is going to be too long of a night if we keep doing this. And then I'm talking with Matt the next day. Turns out there are operators. Some people in the ITC world believe the original operators go by the seven. And so we're going to talk more about that when we come back from what I believe is going to be the last break we have to take here. But so we're going to talk about who are the seven and why were they coming through the ITC app, the portal at Mutilation Ranch before we saw the dancing lights in the sky for about 20 minutes that very first time. We're going to be right back. Okay, and we're back. So we are the seven. Actually, let me read, if I can find it directly, what Matt Jackson had messaged me regarding this very question, just so you can understand how interesting this all becomes. I said, I'm on Mutilation Ranch right now. A device keeps saying, "We are the seven." That was at 8:13 p.m. Okay, so 8:13 p.m. Mountain Standard Time is when I messaged that. Saturday at 4:45 a.m., so it would have been like around 6:45 a.m. in Colorado, as opposed to where he's at in Indiana. He said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised." By the way, Matt, I hope this is okay that I'm sharing this. He says, "Yeah, I'm not surprised. We have a lot to talk about regarding ITC and why these investigations are not exclusive to each other. After years of intuitively stumbling through my work with ITC, I brought a very few recent findings from working with Prism to Josh." Now, Prism is that mind-blowing device we use in Florida. "And his theories, combined with where Prism has headed, are wilder than I had ever imagined. So here's just one more detail to ponder. The type of ITC equipment we use, whether radio-based or whatever, can only receive a present frequency range. Therefore, theoretically, those frequencies may limit the level of the entity that can communicate pending to that device. It's just incredible." Now, what we then discussed on the phone about the seven is this, that there is a lot of ITC researchers over the years, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, and I need to get Matt on here and have a segment about this, and we need to talk about this, because to me it would be a fascinating TV show or a movie or something. But I believe that there, these operators, and you've probably heard Matt mention in his interviews before, even though we've never really got into it, ITC operators. These are people, on the other side who are kind of connecting you to whoever you want to talk to, things like that, right? So, and apparently, there's a bunch of ITC researchers who believe that the seven are the original, like the gatekeepers, like the main operators who made all ITC communication happen. And then one day, the seven were gone. For some reason, they stopped. They decided no more, and they closed up shop. So the seven are gone and no longer doing that. So I'm not here to say that at Mutilation Ranch, we have reestablished communication with the original ITC operators, the seven. But if that were to be the case, that would be mind-blowing on a whole nother level, because there were different voices, and I have some of this on my phone right now, and I'll do my damnedest to try to, see if I can't in the next week or so, try to get some clips separated and put up over on the Patreon page for people to hear. But because there were different voices saying "We Are the Seven," and they sounded different. They had different tones. They had different pitches. Like I said, the easiest way to explain it is some of them sounded male, some of them sounded female, and over and over and over and over and over. It was incessant, and it was constant, nonstop. Every voice that was coming through almost always ended their sentences with "We are the seven." And I know I haven't listened to it since in the moment, right? So I could go back and it could sound nothing like that, and I would be shocked. But also I wouldn't be shocked at the retroactive changing of device sounds, etc. Which reminds me, my buddy D. Renee, this wonderful artist, sent me something about what was it, retrocausality, that I want to talk about. I'm gonna have to remember to do that later, because there's just too much going on here right now to even try to get into that, and I got to get into it more myself and try to figure out, try to organize my thoughts about it in some way. But so potentially we're contacting with something that could either be supposedly nefarious, according to Eric, something, we are the seven, we are the legion, something that tries to always screw up your investigation, tries to commandeer and take over and sidetrack and derail you by just co-opting your investigation and your sessions. And then there's also the other school of thought, and there's people who believe that the seven are these original operators. And to be clear, they are different, I'm sure, than the entity that calls itself seven, that wants to disrupt everything. So did we get in contact with the original ITC operators? According to many old school ITC researchers, I don't know. But would you be shocked at a place like Mutilation Ranch, where there have been, I don't know if it's been the most, but it's up there as one of the most famous cattle mutilation locations. I mean, it's been on multiple TV programs. It's been on UFO Witness, which, by the way, they really bastardize and they really butcher. They combine stories. UFO Witness is a show, I can't, maybe on Discovery, with these two, Ben Hansen and I didn't know the lady, but anyway, Greg's on that episode, and there's one where you can find Greg Feynman from who's started this investigation, Mutilation Ranch. Anyway, they combine stories of Tom's to make it seem like one story, and it's just really unfortunate what they do on paranormal television sometimes. And because if you didn't know Greg, or you didn't know the stories, how would you ever know that they're doing that? You would just think, oh, wow, that's a crazy story. When the two stories are crazy enough by themselves, let alone to combine them, you don't have to combine them, because they're equally and better separate and true, in my opinion. So it's just unfortunate, and you hate to see that. And, obviously it upset Greg when it had come out, a couple years ago or whenever it was. But just unfortunate. Don't love that. But the point is, Mutilation Ranch obviously is a hot spot, and television programs have been and will continue, I'm sure, to try to get on the location and try to figure out what's going on. We'll just have to see what happens with the new owner. He seemingly is open to us being out there, and Greg being out there. We signed some release of liability forms to go stay out there on the property. So if anything happened, obviously he wouldn't be responsible. Got to meet them. They seem pretty cool. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens, and they're going to watch the doc once we have some music on it. Then we'll see what happens after that, right? So, yeah, the point is, I had my mind melted and my face blown off in a way that I wasn't anticipating on this trip, on this drive back across the country, just to try to move back in to my place, and then made a pit stop. And boy, did that pit stop turn into something so much bigger than I ever would have anticipated. I thought that I honestly did think that there was a chance we might find something, an earring or a necklace that might belong to Monica while we were there. I didn't expect to see over 300 UFOs, UBLs, dancing in the sky and to have a profound, almost spiritual, well, not even almost, 100% spiritual experience. And now, when I say spiritual, I don't mean like I think these of the same design of like a UFO of God type of experience. I don't think they're like necessarily angels or anything like that, right? I'm just saying it was overwhelming emotionally and spiritual, and it made me understand in a new way the connectivity of all things alive and all things past, present, and future that traverse the universe and beyond, and that go within, that tunnel in as well, not just out. So we look to the stars, but maybe ultimately we should be looking inside ourselves, and or simultaneously both. And it's wild to think about the possibilities and the enormous potential that consciousness and conscious creatures have when it comes traversing space-time and or interdimensional travel, things like that. And death isn't real, and the universe isn't just us. And those are key components of this podcast, and have been for a really long time. And someday, somehow, we're going to do our damnedest to try to keep providing proof of that, or evidence that, in fact, there is a lot more going on out there, and with not only with the universe and in all these dimensions potentially, but with ourselves. And gosh, we're going to get there, right? I mean, who knows what's going to happen next? But I do know this, you'll never know if you don't try, if you don't try to find out. And I guess curiosity is the thing that keeps us going. And it also keeps us kind, I think, because you can be humbled rather quickly. And I'll go out to mutilation rants. Like, let's say we took this opportunity after what happened. I'm like, okay, I'm going to charge you $500 a person. I'm going to take you to Mutilation Ranch, and I'm going to show you some lights. And then not one light shows up, right? Because I wanted to capitalize on it and just kind of exploit it or whatever. And that's not what this is about. We're going to try to capture evidence. And we already did capture a bunch of evidence, but we're going to try to capture it more in an even more compelling way, I guess, for the average person, right? So, God, I haven't even had time to look at this footage yet. Oh, or the footage that's been sent to me. So, man, I don't know what to tell you other than, geez, I love you, and I hope you love yourself. And there is no time like the present to, maybe make an extra pot of coffee and go outside and look at the sky, but maybe not too high. Maybe try to keep your eye on the horizon as long as it's not covered in light pollution, and who knows what you might see. And just be thankful in advance, maybe. I think that was part of it for me. I was thankful in advance, and I had no expectations. And as we know, expectations can lead to resentment and ruin any good relationship with us, our relationship with ourselves, or with other people, or with other entities, other things. Anyway, so let's try to stay above board on that if we can. Okay, so no tour dates really coming up. I'll keep you updated about our trip to Florida. Fingers crossed. We're sending love to Bill and Carolyn down in Florida. Hurricane Helene, I believe it's Helene, is targeted to go right over their house. So we are sending all of our prayers and thoughts and good energy their way, that everything's going to be okay, and everyone in the path of these powerful storms will be okay. So I hope you're being safe out there as well. And if you're in the path of the storm, I hope you're going to be safe. And we're thinking about you. Hope to see you on the other side of it, obviously, which hopefully it's just a lot of bark and no bite. But depending on what happens, that trip will be postponed. We're not going to go down there if they're, if this is a total rebuild situation. But I'll keep you posted on all that, obviously. But and also, our investigation means absolutely nothing in comparison to the safety and the homes and the housing situations of all the people that are affected by these crazy storms. So, okay, that'll do it. Again, I don't have any shows, so I guess I'll just have to see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.